Hi, welcome to the part 2 of this tutorial series. We will continue with the dough now. And first we will add a few details to the paper. So let's get started. This is how we left on the last part with the paper. We are going to make just a few things before we start with the dough. I wanted to show you that you can if you remember, we did the normal, we inverted it here, but we can also make this, for example, we take this transform out. Instead of extruding down and making this like this, we do it up, and then we use a transform with a rotation. This will be at 1. And we make a rotation on X or Y, 180. So it's the same thing, but just to show you another way. Okay, so we have this. And I want to make it less low poly or less pointy like this. So, and in the process we will learn a bit more. The first thing we want to do is to make this shade smooth. So we can do that because if you see, the faces have this property, but it's not active. So we can use store persistent attribute. This is more or less the way we worked before. We can store or replace an attribute here. So if I connect this like this, and we have here, we can choose auto. I can add an attribute for faces. So this in this option here in faces, we will see this attribute. Let me show you. Example, and the value is 0. So we have example on faces, but not in edge. If I change this to edge, we will see this attribute here. So you can select where do you want this attribute to be. For example, if I leave this in auto and we use here shade smooth, we will replace shade smooth. Since it's in auto, it will guess that this is the best option, I think. I'm not sure about this, but apparently it works that way. This is the kind of attribute that you will save. In this case, our shade smooth is a Boolean. We can see the box there, and we can change the value, for example, to 1. There's nothing in between. If you have a little value here, it will be taken as 1. And you can see how let me remove that, how my shading here is changing from flat to shade smooth. I also want to use a subdivision here, so this is not that pointy. So we will use, there are 2 ways we can do things here. We have subdivision surface, and we have mesh subdivide. They work in different ways. So this will work like the modifier, and this will work like the subdivision when we enter edit mode and subdivide our mesh. We will use this here. And the first problem we find is that we don't have supporting loops. So it just bends like this. We have a few options, and we will learn a bit in the process. So we are going to duplicate this. We will place it here. Let's bring this back to 0, and we will change this to crease. We need to tell our subsurface here to use the creases first. We have to give a value here of 1. So now we have creases on all our edges. This is not what we want. We need a mask here, and we will use, if you remember from our extrude, the top face is the one that was extruded. So it's our base here. So I can use the same, plug this like this, and now we have a crease on the base. but not on the rest of our edges. This is one way, but as you can see, we still have our normals because it's using the subdivision without supporting loops, and this bends here. And what we can do is, let's move this here. I will use another extrude here. And in this case, I will extrude this face just a tiny bit to make that loop. We will make this to the, again, we will use the same mask because I want to do it to this face only. Let me, for a moment, remove the subdivisions with M. I will mute this node so you can see what we are doing. If I extrude this, the positive side is to keep extruding to the same side, so we need to do this to the positive side, but we will do it on a very low number. So this is our supporting loop. We will eventually have a bevel node, and it will be easier, but we have to manage with what we have. So second extrude, we will use the extruded face here. So I will take this part, and I won't extrude it this time. I want 0 for the extrusion, but I want to inset a little bit. And now we have the two supporting loops, and we can unmute this, and you will see that the bad shading, the normals there are gone. So paper finished. I wanted to explain a bit more different nodes. That's why I did this part. Okay. Now we jump to the dough. For the dough, we were going to use the geometry that we had, the round cube, but since this is about learning, I will create the round cube with nodes. We will use a cube. Let me connect this so we see what we are doing. So we have our cube here. We will use now mesh subdivide. So if we subdivide by 1, you can see what I'm doing here is just to activate this wireframe with a button that I have on my mouse, if you are wondering. So subdivide, as you can see, is just subdividing the mesh. We now need to make this round, so I will use set position. This will change completely the position of the numbers. If I leave this in 0, everything will collapse at 0. So that's what we have. But if I use position and I plug this here, for example, we will have the same cube because that was the original position. And what I want to do is to use vector math, and I will use normalize. That will make every point have the same distance to the center. So if we do this, we get a sphere. And now we can up this number, and we will have our round cube. Then we can use a subdivision here, but this time the modifier, so we can make it more round. We can increase this so we have more vertices to work with the normalize. So if we increase this number, it will look more round. We will also use the same thing we used here, shade smooth. We can duplicate this with Alt-P. You make it leave the group, the frame, and as you can see, shade smooth. Now we will squash this shape a bit to make it more like the cupcake top. So I will use a transform, simple transform. I will use a combine XYZ to be able to control this independently. I will leave this at 1 for a minute, and I will use the radius here and here. So now our paper and our dough have the same radius, and we can add a math node here just to adjust with multiply. We can adjust a bit to go well with our paper later. Here I will change this to 0.35. That's what I've used before. And we want to add some noise on the top of this dough. I will move this a bit. Here I will use point translate. This node is basically the same as this one, but it adds to what you had. So if you add value, it will keep the shape. The difference is if we use a set position, everything collapses, so you are replacing the location. Okay, we have this. We will use a noise texture, and now I will use a map range. I'm using the map range to change a bit. We could use math node or also, but we have to choose, so I'm using this. Here I will change the range 0 to 1 to -1 to 1. This is because I want the noise not just going to the positive side, but I also want it to go to the negative side. So we keep the same shape and we get up and down values. So that's why I'm changing the range. Now we use a vector math node, and we will multiply, and we will use combine XYZ again. I don't want movement on X and Y, I only want the movement on Z axis. So this will be my control. I will plug this here and I will multiply it by the noise. So this is what I want to move, or the values that I will use. I will plug this here, and I don't want the entire object to have the noise, only the top part. So we have multiple ways to do that. We could use position, separate, and use the C, because selection is it's a boolean and doesn't support values in between 0 and 1. It's 0 or there's value, so it's yes or no, we can say. So if I plug my C, only positive values will become selected, and everything that it's not positive or negative will become not selected. So if we plug this here and we increase our number, we can see how we only affect the top part. So you can expose this now. And you can name this, I don't know, dough. And a value from 0 to, that's up to you. We could use face normal. It's the same. If the face is facing up on the Z-axis, the selection will work. And negative 0 or negative values won't get selected. So that's the same. The next part is optional. We will be making the bottom part of the dough. This is a bit complex, and if you want to skip it, that's fine, because we are not going to use it for the final render. But if you're interested in learning something more and you want to watch, you're welcome to do it. Let's make some room. What we need to do now is to create a mask that will select all this part and bring it down. We will start with position here. We will separate this. So now we have, we will use the Z-axis to select this with a non-binary mask. I will use a map range here, and I will plug my Z-axis here. So I know this is my 0, and it goes positive when it goes up and negative when it goes down. I know this line is -1 and this line here is +1. At this point I will connect also I will use a join node, and I will connect my paper so we can see what we are doing. I will move this a bit up first. Oh, up there maybe. Now I want to do 2 steps. First, I have my 0 to 1 is not what I want. I want from 0 to around -0.2 or -0.3. We are selecting 0 to -2, so from here to here, more or less, will now be 0 to 1, so 0 to 1. And then it will keep going at 1 because we have this clamp here, and we will use that on a set position. This will collapse again because everything is at 0. And we cannot use this directly on the selection. I'm not sure if this will change or not, but at the moment it's a boolean, so everything that has value, it's 1. This is our mask, and now I want my movement. I want to use a vector math, and I will use the same position, and I will add to the position we have, and in this case a negative number, I don't know, -0.5 at this point. So we will bring down our dough based on this mask. So the first thing, I will plug this here. Everything comes down because our selection is everything. But what happens if we plug this mask that we created? And let me hide for a second the paper so you can see it more clearly. We get our mesh stretched, but because the mask is nothing or full, so this is what we are getting. And the way I found to do it, because since we cannot select this with a gradual mask, what I will do is to use this mask to multiply our movement instead. So this is a bit complex, but with time you will probably get it. I will use another vector math and set this to multiply. Set this to 0 first. Now we want our mask to affect the C value only, so we use a combine XYZ. We plug this. We plug this on our C. We are still missing. Let's put this at 1. And now you can see how we can start getting this shape. The only thing I still want, it's to be able to control this profile, because this will go out of the outside of the paper. So try to follow this logic. We have a mask multiplying our C movement down, okay, that goes from 0 to 1. If I can affect that scale with a curve, I can make this curve, instead of growing linearly, I can make it grow with a curve, and I can change the profile of this curve. So I'm using an RGB curve. And now if we change this line, you will see how we can affect this curve. But now we have control over the profile. And if you want to control the starting and ending radius, you can use another map range. And we will take this 0 to 1 output. So I have to plug this here. 0 to 1 will become we have to plug this on both. And now we have, this will be the size of the top part, and this will be the size of the bottom part. So we have control over the size, up, down, and also our profile. Between these two controls, we can basically have the shape we want. Here we need a bit more definition. We can increase the subdivisions. Okay, that's my result. I did the little waves with a bump, and now we will continue with the simpler version. Now we need to align this to our paper, so we will use a join geometry node, so we can plug both. And we will adjust a bit the size and the location of the dough. And we will create a basic material for this. Also, we will add also a material assign. We will create a new material. We will assign this. If you want to change the material for the different instances, you can also expose this. So each instance will be able to select a different material outside. I will show you just for this one. You can change the material here, but we are not going to do that. Now we create, I will do this fast because this tutorial is about the geometry nodes and not about procedural texture. So noise texture, I will add a noise texture, and I will copy. This one will be 2.5, and this one will be 12. We will use object coordinate here. I will mix this with mix RGB. I will use a ramp. This is the number I'm using. And here we will use this one. You can play with this as you want. This will be our color. I'm doing a chocolate one. I will use a map range here. And I will change my 0 to 1 to a 0.5 to 1 to the roughness. And I will also use a bump. Connect this to the height. And I will change the value to 0.03 and plug it to the normal. Add here this value here. Subsurface of maybe 0.25. And the paper. For the paper I used, you can use this if you want the random, but I will do a little change here. So we are using a texture coordinate. Musgrave. I will change this to rich multifractal. And here you can pick two different colors. I will also add an HDRI. Take everything here, Ctrl J, and this is our dough. So thanks for watching. I see you in the next video to follow with the next part. If you want to support this channel and keep it going, you will find the link to my Patreon account and my stores on the description of all my videos. Liking, subscribing and commenting on the videos will also help me reach more people, so thank you in advance.